Hey, what's up? It's Phoenix. To me, it is existential, mainly because of the difficulties that we face as humans, where everything we experience is filtered through this lens of doubt and terror. How most of the things that we wish would change, the suffering, the pain, the catastrophes that we experience that we wish were different, and how they often aren't, and how we have to live with that reality. I've definitely had a dread lately, a sense of anxiety about the way that the world is, the way that I am, the way that my mind works. I've had trouble figuring out what to do, mainly because it is a complicated mentality to try to untangle. But I realized that with thinking about the notion of terror and fear, that for me, a lot of it is fear, mainly because the fear is always there. The terror that comes from dealing with existence and not knowing what's going on, and how terrifying that is for me, at least. Not so sure that other people experience it the same way, mostly because actually I feel like a lot of people are pretty well balanced. And so there's definitely an element in which my fears are partly hardwired, partly a product of experience and doubt. But I nonetheless think that there's value in those feelings. And that's why I say it's existential, mainly because it's such a powerful thing, a freeing thing though, to realize that existence will sometimes be terrible. And this was the whole project of existentialism, which, although some people might see it as bullshit and may not like it, may not like any of the existentialist thinkers, philosophers, writers, there's still this idea that existence is an important project to try to understand, and that, in an unexpected way, the terror, the anxiety, the fact of it being existential comes from these inner feelings, and that often life itself is counterintuitive. To have this obsession with happiness and to realize that maybe that happiness doesn't actually exist as much as you wish that it did. To realize that happiness may not be what you hope it to be. And so instead we actually feel nausea. As in Sartre, we feel so much of this fear and doubt and angst and disgust that comes from the most unexpected feelings that we might not even think are valid, but that are certainly there. I think of that in terms of the more deeply rooted aspects of the human condition, beyond mere suffering, but the things we don't control, such as death and disease. And so you put all of these things together and you realize existence is a very troubling thing. It doesn't make sense as much as we wish that it did. How existence is brutal. And I've always thought this to a degree, at least in my adult life, even if I didn't know how to actually formulate it. But the main reason is actually because I'm not sure that it ever really works in the way that you hope it will. And so things can definitely still be good. There's still pleasure to be found. There's still hope to be enjoyed. There's still very good things in life. And I never want to detract from that. But, in reading The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin, I think of this whole notion of the idea of suffering alone, and how that's actually a common theme, which is that we are alone, and that the more that we try to understand what's going on in our own psyche or in our lives, the more that we have to acknowledge that we actually feel pretty alone. And that's for a lot of different reasons that we may or may not be able to control, but that are definitely there. The fact that when something happens to us, we are alone, and there's only so much that we can do about it. And as much as it sucks, that's the way that it is. And we have to be able to figure out what to do with those emotions and with those feelings and with the human condition itself. And as I've been thinking about lately, as I've been saying, we can't escape the human condition. We can't escape the things that we wish were different. We can try to improve our lot, but ultimately there's a lot of things that are out of our control. And so that's why I say, again, existence. What is it exactly, and why does it seem to be so evasive and so confusing to the point to where we don't even realize what's going on? I just feel like it's a difficult thing, because I would like to believe more in the hope there, which I do believe is there. But like I've been saying, I've been kind of struck by these counterintuitive notions that existence is messy, that it's ugly, that the truth isn't always desirable. And so even though existentialism might be incredibly beautiful with its writing and its artistic expression, with the fact that it's so prolific for example. Certainly not the only art movement in human thought and human art, but it's certainly something that has appealed to me, partly because I know that I am obsessed with these questions. I really want to know what's going on in my mind. I want to know what's going on in my life, trying to figure it out and not always knowing what to do with it, and realizing that existence will continue to baffle. But I think there is what you could call a caveat to all of this, just something that I also have to add, because I don't want it to be so bitter and brutal. I do want to acknowledge the beautiful things that exist and how all of those things are there. And so what I would say is that there's still a lot of beauty too. There's beauty off the beaten path. There's beauty in trying to figure out something that might be unanticipated or unexpected. There's beauty in life, and we do get to enjoy amazing things. I actually feel like even though my mental illness has caused a lot of pain in my life, and I've had to undergo very difficult experiences because of that reality, I also recognize that I probably haven't experienced, not that it's a contest of course, but I probably haven't experienced the same kinds of pain, at least yet, that other people have, that make them realize that there is no safety in all of this. That ultimately so much of the lives that we live are entrenched in these difficult experiences that we can do nothing about. And so even though it can be really difficult, and I don't like it, even though it frustrates me in a lot of ways, that this is the way that it is, I want to see the good as well. The fact that, as they say, no mud, no lotus. The fact that there's a lot of examples you could use to describe the whole feeling that there is more to it. And I mean, more to it might sound kind of like an exaggerated statement, but my point is more to say that I don't know. It's not what it seems to be. There's the counterintuitive notions of the destructive elements of life and the fact that there's death. Then there's also the joys to be found. And even though I do focus a lot on the pessimism and the cynicism, I do want to focus a lot on the joy as well, because I think it's important that we keep that in mind. And it's something that I've had to learn through time. It's not so much wallowing in the despair, but also recognizing the joy that's there. So yeah, I'm Phoenix. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. I hope that you'll check out my other videos. I hope that you'll check out my books. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.